in the world of AI, one of the biggest questions people ask from the very get-go was around copyright and the copyright issue, and how AI models were treating copyright, how the government was going to regulate copyright to info being used inside of there. And then beyond that, creators are asking, look, if I use AI to help in what I'm creating, can I copyright that? So the US Trademark Office has essentially come out with new copyright guidelines. They've come out with some brand new stuff where they've defined what you can do with content that has been assisted being created by AI. So, Connor, tell us a little bit about this decision and what's happening here.
I mean, think about how huge this is, right, Jaden? Because when we're talking about, hey, we got to get everybody to use this in the workplace, all of a sudden, if you're saying, yeah, but what you use is not copyrightable, and that's where we were until I think it was January 29th when this came down. Which was, listen, if you create images with AI, if you create text with AI, it's not copyrightable. And I work with a lot of large companies, and that's what I was having to advise them. Now, again, who's going to know? People will know with images, but people won't know with creation and all that kind of stuff. So it's more of a theoretical thing. Like if Coca-Cola creates something by brainstorming with AI, clearly they'll be able to copyright it. But this decision really clarifies this huge. I don't think it goes all the way yet, but Jaden, just a few kind of key points on this, right? So first of all, some of the core principles. So some of the works eligible for copyright protection. This is in the United States, of course. So this is like AI-assisted creative works that, what they say, demonstrate human creativity and expression, right? So of course, okay, so like that is kind of eligible for protection, right? But also works incorporating AI as part of the creative process, also protected as long as there's meaningful human involvement. And this was something that AI users had been shouting at for so long, saying like, wait a minute, like, yeah, I did AI, but it took me, especially if you know people who do AI images, they may be, doing 1,000 versions before they get the right thing, prompting it and everything else. That is human involvement. That's human creativity. Same thing if you're coming up with a great marketing plan. It's not like it's just spitting something out and you're taking it. This is really created by you, the human, not by AI. But some of the works that are not eligible for protection right now, it's just, of course, content created solely by AI through prompts without human modification cannot be copyrighted. Guys, yeah, no kidding. Also, if you copyright something just by saying, hey, ChatGPT, give me an image and write copy for this cool new shoe company, it's going to be trash anyway. You want to copyright that? Good luck. You wouldn't even want to. It's going to be garbage. Like, so the reason I like this output from the Copyright Office is that it's saying, hey, the good stuff you can copyright and the garbage stuff, we're not going to let you, but you probably wouldn't want to anyway. So again, simply entering prompts is not going to do it. Now, there is some pushback on this because I think what a lot of especially graphic designers say is the description of how they come up with these images is almost an art form in itself. However, the Copyright Office doesn't agree with that. And also, they are now protected because, again, none of those folks, and I know you work with a lot of these folks, Jaden, so do I. I have a guy on my team at AI Mindset, Robert Haslam, who's the best on the planet at this. He's our sort of AI creative strategist, but he is also an absolute wizard with things like Midjourney. And when I see him working on these things, Jaden, yeah, he puts in a prompt, but then he iterates, right? So he has this innate sense of artistry anyway. He's among, being an AI strategist, he's also a graphic designer, everything else. Clearly, by the end of the road, it's very much a Robert production. It's not like you and I putting in one prompt and getting a thing. Anyway, I'm excited by this. I'm enthused by it. And I'm also encouraged by it, Jaden. But when you're seeing this, your immediate thoughts are what?
So my immediate thoughts are, how do you prove that it hasn't been edited by a human?
Man.
Like, there's no proof. So it's pretty tricky because a lot of this is just based on a claim. It's really interesting because about 2 years ago, I was talking with a university professor right after ChatGPT had come out, and he had a great project idea, which I'm not sure if he did it. So maybe this is a business that someone out there listening to starts, or a concept. I'm sure undoubtedly someone will do it, especially in light of this new news. But his concept was he wanted to create, and I just didn't have the bandwidth because I was working on AI Box, so I couldn't work on it. But he wanted to create a platform that essentially you would allow it to look at your prompts as you were prompting for images or text. I think he wanted, like, for students to be able to prove that they didn't just at like one shot a paper or something, that they were like putting in their own data, that they were putting in their own thoughts. It would
Right.
like essentially read through the whole chain, and it was going to provide a uniqueness score of like how much of their own data and thoughts were put in versus were generated by AI. It was a really cool concept. Um, and and then we were going to have it essentially, and if he builds it, we'd probably still be able to use it to put it into like something like AI box, where people, when they make tools and you get an output, it will give you a uniqueness score, so you know like how unique your output is from other people that could have just tried to one shot that. And it's pretty much like a quality score. Anyways, it'd be really useful in a context like this, where you're trying to trademark things based off of what you do, because like you mentioned, the trademark office might not agree with the fact that if you just put in like a really elaborate prompt and it spits something out, like you're like, well, I made it elaborate. But then starts getting interesting when you're like talking about like, you created an itinerary for someone, but your itinerary, you're like, hey, they want to go from this place to this place, this time of year. They specifically want like to be at sunrise in, Vermont. And like you start putting all this personal information and all this unique information. And it's like, it becomes a work of your own 100%, like what
Yeah.
Robert's doing. And so anyways, I think that this is an interesting concept that I would be curious to see if the pushback, if something like this gets incorporated into this. Anyways, then my final thought is like, it is pretty flippin' impossible to prove that
Yeah.
something was, well, I used AI, but then I like modified it myself. I've heard people say that and like doubt it sometimes, but also it's not even that hard to do. Like you could get an AI to generate a piece of artwork, and then you can go and in Paint and just like make a bunch of dots over it. I mean, if you were really on not a graphic designer, like that's the most ghetto way I can think of doing it, and you could say that you modified it. So I'm not really sure where the line gets drawn.
Yeah.
The last thing I'll say though to this is I do think that it's phenomenal, especially because when you ask AI to generate a piece of artwork, it's different every single time, and I
Right.
think that intrinsically in and of itself is like indicative of you've created something unique and special. And then I have a bunch of family members that are phenomenally talented artists. And a lot of times what they'll do is they'll go to Midjourney or ChatGPT or something else, and they'll say, hey, I'm like, I want to do an artwork about blah, blah, blah. They'll explain it. They'll get it to like generate them the artwork, and then they will go and like paint that artwork that they see.
Yeah.
And it's kind of cool because you get a muse from something, right? Like maybe you go find a picture of a person and you modify it to be,
Right.
like maybe you want to paint like a soldier on a battlefield, but you just go find a picture of a person standing there. And, even back in the OG days, you have like a literal model standing there, and you're painting them and stuff. And so you get your muse from something. And I think that this is a phenomenal, really creative way to, for artists to, even like with musicians, I wouldn't be surprised if there's a ton of musicians out there using tools like Suno. You generate a bunch of concepts. You're like, oh, I love this hook. And then you
Yep.
just like, you learn to play it and sing it yourself. I can't convince my wife to do that because she's like a real musical purist.
She's an actual musician. Yeah.
She has actual talent. Yeah. But if someone, if someone said they were going to chop off my left thumb if I didn't come out with a musical album, that is how I would do it. I would get Suno to create it, and then I would try to replicate what it's done.
So okay, so but let me just jump in there, Jay, because I love this take, and I can't help but think now I want to play the usual role of Jaden Schaefer, which is starting to like hack this. Where does this go? So in other words, like you're right, with text, things like that, it's really impossible to know all that sort of stuff. But Jaden, quick picture for you, right? Like I've created an image or something like that, like I put it on Connor Company, or let's say our company AI Mindset, which is an actual company. And then somebody else comes along and steals it. I'm like, hey, you violated our copyright. And they're like, no way, because this was probably a single shot prompt. Look, it's just kind of trashy. And right. And all of a sudden, like it goes to court. Now, can they then forensically look in your Midjourney records? Can they go into your chat history and sort of see how many prompts you did? Do you know what I mean? Like this is where it really gets interesting, because for the most part, I feel like this gave everybody a lot of leeway. Yes, you can use AI. It's the most reasonable outcome. Music is a really, really hard one. I'm not a musician like your wife Jill, so like I don't know. But with these other things, I can imagine going to court and somebody, because it would only come up if somebody tries to steal your copyright, right? So what do you think? Are they going deep in there forensically, like looking in your Midjourney records? How do you see this playing out?
That is a hilarious concept. I'm just thinking of like the discovery process where you're doing discovery and you have to hand over your Midjourney password and they'll look through everything you've done in your Chat GPT. Like that's just such a hilarious concept. It's like handing over your browser search history. Like,
Ugh.
um, I don't. Okay, so here's a tricky bit. It's cool if it's Midjourney, but there's 1,000 AI image generation platforms out there, and some of them delete your image after like 30 days or something, and they delete
All right.
your like all your data. So like, I'm not sure. Even if I'm pretty sure, like I just go and use like Copilot on their website without a logged in account. I'm not 100% sure if I can, but like let's say they would allow me and do an image a day or something, and then it's just like, what happened to it? Where did it go? Like, are they going to go and ask? Yeah, it's really tricky. So then maybe the burden of proof falls on the person trying to protect it, right? So maybe the burden of proof falls on you to say you generated it and you created the artwork. It reminds me, this is such a weird example, but back in the day when I was in college, I would make AI generated music. This was the OG days of
Yeah.
AI. I'd make AI generated music, put it on Spotify, and try to label it things like relaxing study music, just to get like organic streams. And I still, by the way, to this day, I ended up modifying it a little bit, and I actually think I do the most with meditation. So it was actually my own voice on top of this AI generated relaxing music or whatever. I
Yeah.
still have about 20 million streams a year on my Spotify. So I am a
What?
certified artist. I think my
What?
meditation tracks have gone platinum, Connor. If you didn't know that about me,
I
I
didn't.
might go on tour someday and do a meditation near you. So watch out. Um, but what's interesting to me is back in those days,
Yeah.
we would get messages from like the distribution platforms, and they're like, prove to us that you created this. And I don't think they were worried about AI, because I don't even think that was like a really big issue back then. I'm sure now they got all sorts of crazy stuff. But they were like, prove to us that you like created this music and that you own it. Because I don't know, they're worried we'd like downloaded it off of YouTube or something. I'm not 100% sure. And literally the way that we proved it to them back then was I didn't even have a MacBook, but I just knew that like Logic, I think it's a DAW, a digital audio workstation. I think this is what it is. If you're a
Yeah.
musician out there, you're probably screaming at me because I messed up the acronym. But there's one called Logic, and that's the one that is the Apple, like Apple kind of built it in. Well, I think they purchased it, but anyways, and it's for like creating music. And literally, when they would ask me to prove that I made this music, I would just send them a screenshot. My uncle had a MacBook, and I was like, "Can you open up your Logic on your computer and just take like a screenshot of like your DAW?" And he's like, "Yeah, sure, whatever. Here it is." And I would literally just send them a screenshot of like Logic. They're like, "Oh, you have a license to Logic? Yeah, you probably made it yourself. You probably know what you're doing." And they're just like, "Approve it." So
This is incredible. Incredible. Wait, hold on. So, guys, I hope everybody's listening here, because this is where I want to pivot to, because I know we're wrapping up here. If you have to understand the crazy genius that Jaden is, he is a mad scientist when it comes to all this. And copyright aside and all that sort of stuff, the way Jaden thinks about this is utterly unique. And so that's why I have to shoehorn in this pitch. Jaden Schaefer has a podcast course. He has created four top podcasts that have over 4.5 million downloads to them, guys. And how does he do this? It's not because he's the smartest guy in the world. Sorry, Jaden. And it's not because he's like, the most charismatic dude or anything like that. Sorry, Jaden. It is that he understands how to build a podcast and all the growth hacks and everything like that. He is a sheer genius on this stuff, guys. He has a course. So we're going to leave the description in the description. We'll sort of have a link to that course. Take this course. This is the year for you to start a podcast. I'm telling you, leverage Jaden's genius on this. I have seen this. It's unbelievable. You can do this as well. I'm going to wrap it here. That's the goal. That's the gift that you can give to us. It is great, obviously, to have everybody tuning in today, and we hope you have an amazing rest of your day.